Okay, guys, so Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 2, the second half of the initial season, as far as we're concerned, was released today in time, of course, for the Thanksgiving holiday. And let's just say people are kind of very polarized about it. Obviously some are excited about it, some are cool with it, some like the unpredictability, the twists and the turns and all that, and that's all, and that all sounds good and everything, except the reasoning behind some of these. Basically, you always have to have a reasoning as to why you get these twists and these turns, right? And apparently, the execution, from what I understand, wasn't done very well. Now, some will argue that it was done well. That's the one thing that they liked about shows like Revelation. That, you think it's going to go one way and then it surprises you and goes another. And again, nothing wrong with that. Keep people on their toes. I'm totally for that. Keep people on their toes and everything. But again, when you look at part one and how it was also polarizingly received, you expect maybe they're going to fix things, try to improve on things that were critical about, that people were back and forth about on the first part. And to their credit, they did kind of do that. I mean, they did kind of do that. They did do things that folks are hoping that they would do. That they would do, basically, and not go in another direction, which a lot of people feared. But then again, some of these twists and these turns that they came up with, as I said, the reasoning behind them just didn't really make any sense. And like now, why all of a sudden are these reasonings for these twists and these turns by certain characters coming to light? What's going on and everything. And basically, the biggest twist, I guess you could say, out of this was Evil Lyn. Evil Lyn basically tricked Skeletor, or Skelegod as he was known, into basically giving her his power, his newfound power. And the way he did this was she did this was by seducing him, basically promising to, have a good time with him, have a good screwy time, if you know what I mean. And basically relying on, how Skeletor is, basically his dim-wittedness, as she put it. Skeletor let his guard down and she stole his power. Basically, she told him, hey, if you stay a Skelegod, our intimacy, our screwy time could be fatal for me. So she basically manipulated and basically tricked him into powering down, thus giving her access to the power that he had. The master of the universe, the sword of power, if you will. She tricked him, basically. She tricked him, and and again, her becoming the female version of He-Man or Skelegod or whatever, or Hevelyn as some people call her, really, like I said, it was a huge surprise, there's no doubt. But her reasoning for it, as we find out, is all she ever saw in her life is the bad, the negative, the darkness, not realizing that there was more out there than what she saw. And this all basically stems from the fact that her parents, Evil Lyn's parents, wanted to try to eat her. That's right. They wanted to eat her as a child. Her parents were becoming cannibals, and the only way they felt that they could survive is to kill their daughter, chop her up, and eat her. And this is what causes her to become the way she is. Causes her to run off and live with the rats and the rodents till Skeletor finds her and basically takes her in, helps her improve on her magic and everything, makes her his second in command, not realizing, obviously, that she has her own goals in mind, and those goals are, I'm going to be the new master of the universe, the new mistress of the universe, and I'm going to use my power to finally get rid of everything, because All she ever sees is darkness. All she ever sees is, badness and everything. And it takes Teela, basically accepting her fate, accepting her, well, not her fate, but accepting her destiny as the new sorceress to open Evelyn's eyes and make her realize there is more than what you're perceiving. There is more beauty and goodness and light out there than what you're perceiving. And by accepting, her destiny, accepting her destiny as the new sorceress, but doing it in her own way. And this is where some people got very critical about, Teela. I mean, some were probably cool with it because they're like, good, you could bring out. Well, what I'm trying to say is, some people were. I'll put it like I said earlier. People were polarized about this. They were split down the middle about some of these things, and the Teela becoming, accepting her destiny to be the new sorceress. It was one of them. It was one of them because basically, we know that from to an extent, the sorceress was bound to Castle Grayskull. No matter, what she did, she was bound to Castle Grayskull. Now, let me kind of correct that. Let me correct that. Because you see, we see in the Secret of the Sword movie, in the flashback, in the dream sequence that the sorceress is having at the beginning of the film, we see her with, well, it wasn't the dream sequence or anything. Well, yeah, it was the dream sequence as well as her telling the story of, how Adora came into being, in Hordak's hands and everything, and how her destiny was to be She-Ra. Long story short, we see the sorceress outside of Castle Grayskull at Snake Mountain. We've seen her outside of the castle many times before. Even in the reboot, the 2002 reboot, we saw her outside the castle. So she wasn't totally bound to it. As some people would allude to the fact she actually was out and about. Maybe not as much as what, Teela is going to be doing because, like I said, what I was trying to get at is Teela accepts her destiny as the new sorceress, but she's going to do it her way by acknowledging that not she or Adam has the power, but that we all have the power. Basically sharing it, basically saying that by basically changing things up and saying we have the power, she's basically saying, I'm going to go and take this, destiny of mine into another direction and do what you couldn't do because you were always trained to think, oh, it's supposed to be I and I'm supposed to be stuck here. No, it's we work together kind of deal. Now, what's even more intriguing about this is how a lot of this comes into being because when Evelyn becomes the new mistress of the universe, the new wielder of the Sword of Power, she decides she's going to kill the already dead. She's going to kill those in Pre-Eternia, those in the Sub-Eternia, whatever that's called. Basically the version of heaven and hell. She decides she's going to kill them again. She decides to combat those that are coming up against her to summon a Scareglow and a lot of the undead from the hell area to help her out, only to have Orko, the deceased Orko who gets killed in the first part, to come back and help his friends, basically defeat her. We get Savage He-Man show up, but Savage He-Man only shows up for a brief period towards the end before he's reverted back. And then seeing what's going on and becoming He-Man again, thanks, basically, I guess thanks to the sorceress or something. I don't really know. Oh, anything. I got to go back and look. But basically, He-Man, basically Savage He-Man shows up towards the end, and basically he gets converted back. He reverts back to regular Prince Adam, He-Man, if you will. He reverts back to that, after a brief showing towards the end of the second part to combat Evil Lynn, and it's enough to distract her to where, it's enough to try to kind of distract her so that Teela, can do her thing. And Teela basically, like I said, she accepts her destiny because she's been very reluctant about it. She was very reluctant, turning her back on magic, but realizing that, hey, this is my destiny, but if I'm going to accept it, as I mentioned earlier, she's going to go in her direction, her own direction, and do it. And, again, that's one thing a lot of people criticized about it, or back and forth about it. The fact that, she could do, something more. She could do more than what her mother did as the sorceress, being able to be out and about without being bound to the castle. But, again, I got to reiterate, that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. So she accepts her destiny as the new sorceress, and she, goes up in the air. She fights Evelyn, or Evelyn, if you will, and basically that's when she opens her eyes and makes her realize, you're wrong. Look, and she shows her that there is more to life than what than what Evelyn perceived, and this is enough for Evelyn to realize, the mistake she's making, and the fact that she's letting her hatred, this darkness she had inside of her, blind her to the truth that the fact that, yes, there is some badness in the world, but there's also light, there's also good. So basically Teela is able to talk her down, get the power away from her, revert her back to Evelyn, or Evelyn, if you will, and basically redeem her and get her over to their side. And like I said earlier, I think the fact that the reason she did this, did I say this earlier? Probably got to go back and watch the video, but as I was telling myself earlier, I think the reason Evelyn was, easily persuaded by the new sorceress Teela to, look at, the overall picture and see that there's more good than bad at times, and there's more beauty in everything, it's because of the time she spent with them. The time she spent with Orko, the time she spent with Teela, that even though she was only doing it because of reasons she had with Skeletor, because it was all part of originally Skeletor's plan, that, that was enough. That I'm assuming spending that time with them is what kind of helped her remember that there is good, and that she can't let her blindness to the darkness overwhelm her or anything like that, or corrupt her. So anyway, she's able to revert her back and everything. And then, of course, Skeletor, being who he is, decides to go back on his word, or go back on his partnership, or alliance, if you will, with Adam, He-Man, and all them, because of the fact that, he's Skeletor. He is Skeletor. And the way this happens is, like I said, Evelyn is, gets the sword of power removed from her, somehow, or basically, is able to give the power back to Adam and all that. And Adam uses it not only to turn himself back into He-Man, because I did skip that part. I did forget that he was Savage He-Man, then he went back to Adam, and then using the Sword of Power, or getting the access to part of it, he was able to go back to being He-Man again. He decides he's also going to give Skeletor back his Skelegod powers to show him, because obviously this ties into, Adam being pure of heart and everything, show him what it's like to save a universe. But even though he's able to do that, Skeletor again goes back on his word and everything, still wants to fight and wants control, and He-Man, Adam, is left with no other choice but to toss Skeletor almost into space, or in, literally out of the castle, literally out of the area, if you will. He's able to do that, and basically that's pretty much the end of the show. Evelyn, or end of the series, at least this version of it. Evelyn, or Evelyn, she's kind of like, I guess you could say, redeemed, but what she does is she does a self-exile. She kind of takes herself to the Mystic Mountains to live out her life there, so that, she's not tempted or anything anymore, and she can find peace again. Andrea is made the new Man-at-Arms, and that's a good thing. A lot of people actually like that, because that's one thing they worried about was, Teela, it was the fact that either Teela or Andrea was going to be the new champion, mostly Andrea, but they went with the Man-at-Arms deal, which they were hoping for, and that's what they did. Basically, then after that, we have Teela and Adam on top of the castle. I don't know if it's the castle, in the kingdom, in the kingdom that they're in, or on top of Grayskull or something. And they're talking about the future and everything, and about the secrets held within. And Teela, as the new sorceress, basically wanting to do things her own way, decides that they're not going to keep secrets anymore. That the secret thing, it's not going to be, it's not going to be a thing anymore. And that if anything, that if we do anything, we're going to let others know. So, for example, what I'm perceiving out of that is, she's basically saying that the next person that becomes the new champion of Eternia after Adam, that unlike Adam, they're not going to keep, the secret identity, as the new He-Man, as the new champion, a secret. That instead they're going to let the world know, hey, I'm so-and-so, and oh, I'm also this person too. So that's basically the, that's basically the perception that's basically the, perceivedness I'm getting from this, that that they're going to go in that direction of the fact that whoever takes up the mantle from Adam can no longer hide the fact of who they are behind the champion the champion disguise. That they got to let them know, I'm both, I'm one and the same. Because Teela isn't very fond of secrets, and we knew that in part 1, that she's not very fond of it. She basically, Teela's character in this was, she doesn't like when people keep secrets from each other, because sometimes information that you want to keep a secret might be very vital to the situation at hand. So she's basically in that category of hey, if you're going to be this or you're going to do that, then you got to let other people know. You got to let everybody know about that. So yeah, she's not very, like I said, she's not very fond of it. So her first, rule basically as sorceress is the secrets of Castle Grayskull are no longer to be kept secret, and that, and like I said, what I'm perceiving from this is whoever takes over the mantle as the new champion can no longer hide this secret identity. They gotta let everybody know. So anyway, after that, the series actually closes up with Skeletor being in the clutches of this cult, this techno cult that we saw at the beginning of the series, and he's being injected with this techno virus by this techno-like sorceress character. And then what we see pop up at the beginning, or pop up at the top of the head of the techno sorceress's head, basically it's like a little opening. It opens up, and what we see pop up is the image of the Horde, and you see Hordak's face right there, basically indicating that not only is Skeletor going to be infected with this virus and thus become like maybe a techno slave, techno zombie, if you will, basically obedient to not only the techno cult but to the Horde. But it also shows that we're going to be getting Hordak possibly, as well. But what it also does is it pretty much gives us the idea that we might get a third part, like we're going to get a third chapter or a second season, because this was perceived somewhat like as a conclusion, a first season, if you will, to this this continuation of the Filmation series. So now what we're getting here at the end is sort of like a cliffhanger of, hey, we're going to get a season 2, and we're going to go in another direction, and this time the threat's going to be the Horde and everything. So yeah, overall, I'm going to say this about the second part of this, this conclusion of, the Masters Universe or the Filmation series, whatever you want to call it. I will say that they did a better job at doing things. Some people like Neon and Geeky, they have their opinions on how they, how things went. Like, Neon believes that there were certain elements that would change so that they wouldn't, suffer the same, that being Netflix, they wouldn't suffer the same backlash they did with the first part. That's what he's assuming. Because one of the things that we see at the end is Adam and Teela holding hands, talking about, secrets are not going to be secrets anymore, and then her calling him, calling Adam her hero, which, kind of flies in the face of what they were hinting at in the first part. Because what they were hinting at there was she had an LGBTQ relationship with Andrea, and now all of a sudden she's going to be with Adam, and it's like, where did this come from? I mean, yes, it does coincide with the fact that, in other parts of the continuity connected to the Filmation series, that, Hero is the son of He-Man and of Adam and Teela, He-Man and Sorceress Teela. It is, canon in that front. But the way they were presenting it in the first part here was, it looked like they were going to go Andrea Teela as a couple, but all of a sudden they decided to switch it to Adam and Teela, which again, is cool and everything, because that's pretty much what was teased at, in the original series, as well as acknowledged in other incarnations of He-Man, prior to this. But, to those that watched Revelation and the way they teased Andrea and Teela, it felt like it just came out of nowhere. Like Adam was supposed to be, like, what they did is instead, according to what, people like Neon and Geeky of Clownfish TV are looking at, is that the original scene was supposed to be Andrea and Teela telling Andrea she's her hero. But instead, knowing that the backlash they might get, they decided to go with Adam instead, to kind of stay true to the original mythos or the original lore of the Filmation series and stuff. So yeah, so yeah, that happened there. And again, like I said, people like Geeky and Neon, the kind of suspicious that some things ended up being changed, for the second part, for the second half, because of what we got originally in the first half, if you will. Now we all could be wrong about that, but everybody has their opinion. But yeah, basically the ending of the show indicates and teases not only we're going to get a second season in a continuation, if you will, but that we're going to get the Horde coming in. We're going to get Hordak coming in. But now the question is, will we be getting She-Ra? And that's hard to say. Just because, Hordak and the Horde are coming in doesn't mean we're going to get She-Ra right away, if at all. Because you got the live action series on Amazon, you got the rights tied up here and there. It's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. Now, we could get She-Ra. And that She-Ra could be Evelyn. Believe it or not, they could go in that direction. They don't have to make She-Ra the twin sister of Adam or anything like that if they don't want to. They don't want to stay true to that. Instead, they could say, hey, Evelyn or Evelyn, let's fully redeem her and turn her into She-Ra. Let's make her the new She-Ra for this generation. And in a way, I guess it could work, because, she'd be fully redeemed. Or you could she would be fully redeemed, but this would be a way to really concrete it, if you will, that she is now a good girl. She's now on the good side, because now she is a champion of Eternia, and now she's going to go by the name of She-Ra when she wields the power, or whatever her interpretation of it will be. So there's a good chance they could do that. And it wouldn't be the first time any show does this. For example, you go back to Power Rangers in Space and in this follow-up show, Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, and basically you have Andronima, who's actually the younger sister of Andros, and she's corrupted, she's manipulated. They bring her back temporarily, then she gets corrupted, manipulated even more so, and then she's redeemed and restored at the end. And basically, because she had such a reputation as Andronima, she decides, in an episode where she comes back in Lost Galaxy, she decides to fully redeem herself by taking on the mantle of the new Pink Ranger of the Kendricks temporarily, because she comes back at the end, sacrifices herself for the good of the team. For the good of the team and the planets and all that, against Psycho Pink. So basically, Andronima takes on the new mantle of the Pink Ranger, and there's a scene in one of the future Ranger installments, I think it's called Legendary Battle, where they're all already morphing and everything, and you see Andrade. You see her putting on, getting ready to put on the Lost Galaxy helmet, if you will, and she's like, "I love being a Ranger." And all of a sudden, you see her face change from, her real who she really is, to the Andronima face, and it's like, whoa, and it's like, okay, that's kind of a hint of even the good can turn, even the evil of evils can turn, permanently good, can fully be redeemed. And I wouldn't be surprised if, they decide, okay, we want to bring She-Ra in, but we don't want to make it the She-Ra that, is known as known for the Filmation series. What could we do? What could we do to change it up? And that's where Evil Lynn, redeemed fully, could come into play. Now they could still go that route of, hey, let's bring in Adora and everything, and kind of go the route of, okay, she was corrupted and brainwashed, manipulated by Hordak, and go with that route again, but in a different way, and that's fine too. But because that would stay true to the Filmation, lore and mythos of Masters of the Universe. But to me, if they're so determined to change things up and make things, different to an extent, I wouldn't put it past them to do that with Evil Lynn, if they decide to give us another season and, another 2-part season, if you will, which would focus on the Horde. I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, though, like I said, this did a little bit better. Did it fully salvage the series in the eyes of some? Not particularly. Some have said it's even worse than the first part. Basically based on what we get, here, throughout the second part. They feel it's even worse. Because of some of the implications of how Evil Lynn was able to, take the power, the sword of power's power, the Master Universe power from Skeletor. And basically, things like that, like, how she was able to do that, how Skeletor is portrayed as being, I just want to get, boom, boom, boom kind of deal. It just, it's just to a lot of folks, it was a lot, with those kind of implications, it was just a lot worse than what the first part was. Now, some have said, even though they have said that that's made it worse, they have indicated that there are some things in there, that being Clownfish TV and others, they have indicated that there are some things in there that are an improvement, and they're glad that they went with it. They went in this direction. They had these moments and all that, because like with He-Man and Teela fighting together in the end, even after Teela becomes a sorceress, I think, even Geeky's like that. Geeky even looks at that like, even though she didn't like the series as a whole, or the second part as a whole, she felt that was the best, that was a good decision, because that's how it's supposed to be. If you're going to stay true to what the Filmation one was. But overall, the series, again, the second part, I would say, did okay. With a few things withstanding, a few things here and there, I thought it was a better improvement. I will give it that. Now, if they do a second part and everything, will that kind of like, be a lot better than these two? A second season, I should say, a 2-part season 2. Will that be better than this one? It's hard to say, but we'll see what they do. For all we know, they could just cliffhanger us for nothing and just decide to move on, but we'll see what they do. It's going to be interesting. But like I said, they definitely, with the second half, improved, and, in some areas, not completely, because some things obviously just didn't make sense and everything, and, the reasonings behind some of the twists, like I said, kind of like out of nowhere, like, really? This is why you want to, if you want to destroy the universe and everything because of this, and, you're too blinded until somebody actually unblinds you, it's like, okay, whatever, it just, it just didn't, really was, it just really, it had its moments. I'll put it this way: it had its good moments, and it had its not so good moments. Some people not being fond of Teela, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna be I'm gonna, accept my destiny as the new sorceress, but I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna be a sorceress that gets out and about." And again, I have to reiterate, I have to reiterate, if you will. The sorceress did this too, not as much, but she did it as well. So let's not forget that. And she did it in the Filmation and the reboot. So let's not forget that. So Teela is saying she's going to do more as a sorceress than the sorceress did prior. It's got truth. It's got some truth, but not entirely, because, her mother, the sorceress, did pretty much the same before her. But anyway, though, like I said, I thought, honestly, the second part was okay. I'll look at it this way. The first part, D-. We'll have to go with the grade of a D- on the first part, because even though it had some good things, it was a total different scenario than what they had promised. Period. Or what they were promoting. Period. The second part, It had, I wouldn't say a vast improvement, but it had a decent improvement. So I would say C+. I would say C+ on that one. And I think if they could take some of the good and positive they got out of this and apply it to potentially the next season, the next the next part or so, the second season, the next two-parter season, if you will, with the Horde and everything, if they could take some of the good they may put in there and apply it there, then maybe they might be able to even get people like Clownfish TV and Yellow Flash and all of them to really get behind them and side with them and all that. So overall, like I said, it was a vast improvement. Well, not vast improvement, but a decent improvement, I should say. C+ effort compared to the D- effort of the first part. And again, all they have to do is take this, all that some of that positiveness they got out of this, and apply it to whatever that second season two-parter is going to be if they do one. And I think they'll even run over the likes of Clownfish TV in the long run. Even though they don't want to see another continuation of this, I think if we get one, it might win them over. So let me know what your thoughts are. What did you think of part 2 of Revelation? How did you feel about it? What are your thoughts on Evil Lynn becoming the surprise twist villain at the end before being redeemed thanks to Teela? What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about Andrea being the new man at arms? How do you feel about Teela basically being a sorceress that's out and about? Again, gotta reiterate and remind you that it's not the first time, because we saw her mother do that as well. So we got to remember that her mother did it as well, not as much, but she did it as well in both incarnations. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on them not wanting to, mostly Teela not wanting to keep any more secrets from anybody anymore, and everything, as well as as well as that surprise of the fact that they are now an item apparently between Adam and Teela. What are your thoughts on that? Especially when they were hinting strongly at an LGBTQ deal with Andrea. What are your thoughts on Skeletor getting hit with the technovirus, the Horde coming in? Do you think we'll get She-Ra in the potential next season, if you will, the next two-part season? Do you think it'll be a She-Ra that's true to the original, or do you think it will be Evelyn, that's the new She-Ra? What are your thoughts? Comment below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Check me out at BW Rose's discussions on all your favorite podcast locations except for Pandora, as well as check me out at BW Roses on Venmo. Check me out at BW Roses at patreon.com for the $1, $3 tiers to help support there, as well as check me out at BW Roses, not BW Roses, but check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2 to help donate in that area if you feel like it. But again, D- effort in the first part, C+ improvement in the second part. So what are your thoughts? But again, what are your thoughts? And I'm out.